Good evening, everyone. It is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, the home of healthy, delicious. Wishing you a very wonderful day wherever you are in the world, whatever it is you may be doing. I hope you're well and I hope you are safe this evening. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me this class. It's part of our epic air fryer week, and in tonight's class we're going to be making a absolute classic, and it's an Aussie pub classic, and I have a bit of knowledge when it comes to Aussie pubs. Having had a couple of my own, I know just how popular salt and pepper squid is. In fact, if I had tried to take it off the menu, there would have probably been a riot in the bar. So it's one of those dishes that is almost synonymous with, you know, Aussie pubs and pub grub and, you know, having a schooner, having a beer, but the way we traditionally make salt and pepper squid is we deep fry it. So it is not the healthiest dish in the world, and it is the absolute best dish that we can then translate into a healthy meal thanks to our air fryer here. So yes, we're going to be air frying our salt and pepper squid today. I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make a really nice marinade to go with that squid. We're going to do a dry crumb, and we're also going to make the most delicious salt and pepper little sprinkle as well. So good to have you on board. If it's your first time joining me, welcome to my kitchen. If you're a long time viewer, thank you for coming back. Let's get into the recipe. Come on down to my bench. It is an easy one, but we're going to be talking a little bit about squid. So there may be a few things, a few little tips and tricks that you might better learn along the way. So come on down to my bench. First thing we're going to do is we're going to be talking about squid. So the type of squid that I'm going to be using, aka calamari, I'm using the tubes. Now you can purchase these either, you know, fresh or frozen, and to be completely frank with you guys, the frozen ones are absolutely fine if you can't find fresh. So you can buy the tube. This is a tube that's already been cleaned. So normally you would obviously have a head attached, and inside sometimes you get these little bit of cartilage which kind of feels like really soft pliable plastic. So if your squid tubes come attached with a head, feel free to obviously to cut that head off. If it's a small head, you might even want to use it in your dish. I'll leave that up to you. Some people are a bit squeamish. And also just double check to make sure that the cartilage here in the squid tube has been removed. It's really simple. You literally just pull it out and it literally looks and feels like a little bit of plastic. So that's cleaned, already done. And as I said, if you buy your squid tubes fresh, well done. If you buy your squid tubes frozen, what you can do is just put them into, you know, a bowl and run some tepid water over them, or room temperature water, and just let them sit there for 20 minutes, and then they will defrost quite naturally for you. So it's really easy to do. So for this recipe, it serves about 4 people as a snack or a side dish. We're going to be using 500 grams of cleaned squid tubes, obviously defrosted. So to prepare our squid tubes, and this is a little tip, a little trick that I learned for many years of cooking squid in pubs throughout Australia, is you want to first open it up by just slicing down the middle, just like that, and you want to spread the tube so it's nice and flat. A lot of times you will find squid tubes have been cut into squid rings, which you can do, but I suggest you actually do it this way, because you're going to get a more tender product. Because what you actually want to do is, using a really sharp knife and just the point of it, you want to score along the inside of the squid tube. This is going to help when you bite into it, so it's not quite as rubbery. It'll actually help to tenderize it, because what it does is it makes the fibers shorter. And if we were to just cut it into squid rings, it can be a little bit on the chewy side. So this is just a little tip, a little trick that I've learned for many years as a chef, is that you want to score it, and it kind of is this little crisscross pattern, as you can see. So we go all the way down one side, and then we turn it around, and then we just go all the way down the other, and what you actually have at the end of it is almost like these little diamonds. You see how I haven't gone straight right the way through? That's known as scoring. We don't want to go right the way through, because we just want to keep it like that. So we're going to do it to the other one. Remember, 500 grams for 4 people. It's around about just over a pound of cleaned squid tubes. So we're going to score it again. Remember, just a tip of a really sharp knife is all you need. Doesn't have to be a big knife. And we're just going to make those crisscross patterns down the inside of the squid tube, and that's it, done like that. So at this point in time, we want to create a bit of a marinade to go on top of the squid tubes. And this is something that you don't have to do, but I suggest you do it because it's really, really amazing. And the marinade that we're going to make really, really simple. So taking up my scales, put my bowl on here because I'm going to throw all the squid. Actually, you know what? I'll put it into a big bowl. That's probably going to be wiser. Put it into a big bowl, and I'm going to throw all the squid straight into this big bowl here. There we go. So we want to grab ourselves up. I'm going to be using coconut aminos today. So this is made from coconut nectar, and it's sort of almost like the alternative to tamari. So it's a bit sweeter, has a bit more nuanced flavors, but if you don't have coconut aminos, don't worry, you don't have to go out and buy it. You could just use tamari here, low sodium tamari. And we're going to add in, for all our squid, we're going to add 25 mils of coconut aminos, which is just under an ounce, goes into there. Can be quite decent. 25 mils. And as well as the tamari, as the coconut aminos or tamari, we're also just going to add a little bit of sesame oil, and we're going to be putting in 2 teaspoons of sesame oil goes in there as well. And that combination of just those 2 sauces is phenomenal. It is so good, and I suggest that when you do this, have a sniff. It smells amazing. It smells really, really good. So now that we're at that point, I'm just going to continue to chop through the squid now and just make it into little strips. You could make them into long strips like that if you wanted to, or just to make them into more bite-sized strips just by cutting the calamari in half or the squid in half, especially if it's quite big. You want to cut it in half before it goes into the marinade. Now this marinade, it's up to you how long you marinate the squid for. I would suggest a minimum of half an hour, most definitely. But if you wanted to, you could even do it for as long as 24 hours. Because obviously the longer, you know, you have a piece of food sitting in this wonderful combination of sauces, the better the flavor is going to be at the end. But you know, if you don't have the time, don't panic. You can totally just, you know, wait for half an hour. So we're going to pretend. So once it's in there, give it a good mush around, make sure it gets completely covered and all of the marinade, you want to make sure that all the pieces are covered. Now, by the way, I'm only doing a half portion. This is only about 250 grams of calamari. You're going to have double this when you do a full 500 gram portion. So yours will look a lot more than mine. Just so you're aware, I'm only doing a half portion. Only because it's only me and Mahei. I don't think we could eat a full 500 grams of calamari. So there you go. We're going to leave that, like I said, minimum of half an hour. But if you can leave it even longer, way better, because it's just going to help to flavor up that squid really, really nicely. So that job is done. I'm just going to flip my board over, go to the clean side, and we're going to think about the crumb. Now, if you joined me, when did we do the last class? Goodness me, a couple days ago we did a class and I taught you guys how to make zucchini and spinach fritters, and I made a dry crumb to go on it, because remember, when it comes to air fryers, you want to go with a dry crumb, not a wet crumb or a batter. Batters do not work in air fryers, but dry crumbs work really, really well. And of course, because we now have our squid soaking in this fabulous marinade, we don't have to worry about adding any more liquid. The crumb's going to stick to it really, really well. So the crumb that I'm doing is exactly the same crumb as I did for our zucchini and spinach fritters. So we're going to be doing 40 grams of our flaxseed meal is going to go in there. I'm putting it straight into the plate that I'm going to use to crumb. So 40 grams, which is about 1.5 ounces or 2 heaped tablespoons of our flaxseed meal goes in. I'm also going to be adding in the same amount of our almond meal, 40 grams. If you don't want to use almond, you could also use another nut flour like walnut flour, or you know, any type of flour you like. One flour that is really, really good in this is also sunflower seed flour if you want to go nut free, but I'll leave that up to you. So we've got the almond in there. Give it a little bit of a mix through. And we don't have to season as we're going, because sometimes it's a nice idea to actually put a bit of salt into your crumb mixture, but because this is salt and pepper squid, we don't need to do that. We can just leave it exactly like that. So I want you to imagine that half an hour has elapsed. Half an hour has elapsed and we have our marinated squid sitting there waiting for us. But before I do that, before I do the next step, I am going to preheat my air fryer, because one of my golden tips, one of my golden rules when it comes to air fryer cooking is you should always preheat your air fryer, because you need to think of this as a little mini oven, because that's basically what it is. And you wouldn't put a cake into a cold big oven. It's the same concept when it comes to your air fryer. You need to preheat it for at least 2 minutes. It doesn't need much, a couple minutes, but what you'll notice when you do preheat is that you will get a way better crisp color and texture on the outside, nice and crunchy, when it goes into a hot oven as opposed to a cold oven. So I'm turning on my air fryer now. Someone asked me in the last class what setting I'm putting it on, because some air fryers come with like grill, bake, roast and all that sort of stuff. To be completely honest with my one, I reckon it's all the same. Like, I've sort of tested it and I've put something on that you wouldn't think would be on bake, and it cooks the same as if it was on roast or barbecue. So it's not so much a worry about for my particular model. Your one might be different on what the setting is. I just make sure the temperature is correct. And for our squid here, for our salt and pepper squid, we want to turn it on to 200 degrees Celsius, which is 390 degrees Fahrenheit, so pretty hot. And I'm going to preheat it for 2 minutes, remember? So I'm going to do that right now by turning it on, but I'm also going to adjust the temperature as well. Sorry, the time is going to be adjusted, because our squid only needs to be in for 10 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer. I'm going to set it for 13 minutes. How about that? It's going to preheat for 3 minutes, and then it's going to cook away there. It won't take very long at all. So that's what we're doing. Let me just make sure I've got on the right temperature. Yes, I have. All right, it's looking pretty good. Yes, we got a question?
Emma Walker-Coon has asked, can I do salt and pepper prawns the same way?
Emma has asked whether she can do salt and pepper prawns the same way. Absolutely, you can. If you don't like squid, and some people don't, it can be a little bit on the rubbery side and very squiddy, but you know, prawns would be very lovely. Just make sure, obviously, you take off the skin from the tails before you do that. All right, so we're ready at this point. Like I said, imagine half an hour has elapsed and we now have this wonderful squid that's been marinating away for us. All we need to do now is to put it into our crumb mixture. So the best way to do that is just a little bit of tongs, and we're just gonna pick up a piece. See, it's pretty crumbing is easy. Crumbing is easy. Yes, you might get a bit messy, but that's the fun part. You know, you could use tongs if you're really particular or not, but you don't have to do them one piece at a time. Which is a really good thing, right? We can do them by just literally picking up a whole bit, giving it a bit of a shake, and then just throwing it down into the crumb mixture. And you know, it will actually take a good amount of crumbs, so you get a really nice crumb on the squid, which is fantastic, and which is exactly what we want. So you want to do that sort of thing. Like I said, you can use your fingers if you want to, long as they're clean, of course, but it's not hard to do. And it's kind of one of those jobs where tossing is, you know, if you're a good tosser, you're probably going to be really good at crumbing squid. And in fact, you know, this was in the pubs that I have owned, where we always had some form of salt and pepper squid on in some way, shape or form. There was always salt and pepper squid on the menu, and this job would usually be given to the person who, like an apprentice, someone who's joined our kitchen, someone who's new to our kitchen, because it doesn't really require, you know, too much thought process. I mean, I've just literally just mixed it around and I've got this wonderful crumb that's happened, and that's all you got to do. So I'm going to get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. And what we need to think about is obviously our air fryer here. So, depending on what type of air fryer you have, you will either have a basket or you will have a tray, if it's a square, you know, like a little oven air fryer, or you will have a wire rack like I have. Doesn't matter which one you've got, the concept is exactly the same. First thing you want to always do when it comes to putting a crumb onto a wire rack or into your basket is just give it a light spray of either coconut oil or avocado oil, and that's going to help to prevent this. It'll still stick a little bit, but at least won't be as sticky. So you can put baking paper down into your air fryer. I suggest you don't with this. It actually works better when you use no baking paper. So we're just going to put it straight into the basket, straight into the wire rack, but make sure you give it a little bit of a spray, and that is just going to help to prevent it from sticking. So now I'm going to go with my fingers because it's a little bit easier. And what you want to do is you want to lay out your squid, and you want to make sure, and this is really, really important when it comes to air frying literally anything. This is another one of my golden rules of air frying, is what you'll notice. I haven't just taken this big, lump of squid and gone and then put it in there, yeah? Because that's just not going to work. It just won't cook as well. What I'm actually doing is taking that extra minute, it's all it takes, I'm taking that extra minute to make sure that I'm laying it down in a single layer, because you don't want to double up, because then the air doesn't get to it or it doesn't cook evenly. I'm laying it down in a single layer, and I'm also making sure that there's air between the strips, so that the air can circulate really, really well, because we want it to cook evenly and we want it to cook at the same time, which is really important. Yes, we got a question mark at you.
A couple questions. Is this in your cookbook? That's the first one. And the second one is, what do you recommend for like size air fryer for a family of 4?
Okay, first question, we'll go over the first question was, is this in my cookbook? No. Guess what? You are learning it for the first time right here and now. If you were watching me make this, you are the first person to get my recipe for salt and pepper squid. So how lucky are you? And the second question was, what size air fryer do I recommend for a family of 4? So we are a family of 4 to 10, depending on who's home, literally 4 to 10. I have a 10 litre, which is about 2.5 gallon size. I have a 10 litre air fryer. It's one of the bigger ones on the market. And even with that, see, I'm going to have to batch cook. Even with this size, I'm going to have to batch cook that. So my suggestion is, the bigger the air fryer that you can get, the better. Because you don't want to get a real small one, because you will literally be batch cooking, 3 or 4 times. And that's probably the only thing about air fryers that is a little bit of a pain, is they don't seem to be large enough. I know that people have a great deal of success with the ones that look like an oven, because you can put different racks in. So maybe you want to go for something like that. If you want to go, it literally looks like a little benchtop oven. It's quite fabulous. Right, okay, we don't want to let our air fryer cool down too long. We're going to give this a quick little spray. Remember, not much, doesn't need much. That's the beauty of air frying, is that it literally requires, just like that, because a little oil goes a long way. It's another one of my golden rules when it comes to air frying, is always to remember, a little oil goes a long way. And the oil that's in there now, we've got that hot air circulating really quickly around the air fryer. What's happening is it's mimicking the whole concept of deep frying, which is what would normally happen with salt and pepper squid, especially in a pub. And that's why I don't do pubs anymore, because I could no longer, this is true story, I could no longer justify serving people fried food. It didn't sit well with me. It stopped feeling, like something that I wanted to be a part of. And when it comes to pubs, you guys know, you go into pubs to get steak and chips, right? Parmesan and chips. Yeah, deep fried squid, salt and pepper squid, that is a pub, and I get it, and I get that it can be a lovely treat, but you know me, guys, I can't do that anymore. So that's why I got out of pubs quite a few years ago now, because I wanted to serve people food that was going to help them, was going to be good for them and healthy for them. So air fryer, yeah, it literally will start now to mimic that whole idea of a deep fryer without a deep fryer. You saw how much oil I put in there, probably like not even a teaspoon of oil has gone into this entire thing, so it's pretty fabulous. So what we're going to do now is we need to create the salt and pepper sprinkle or spread, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a masterclass in salt, because not all salt is created equally. Let's be completely honest here. So what I have in my little bowl here, let me show you, is I have 4 different types of salt. Now, I grew up thinking salt came as table salt, and it was iodized, and that was it, right? And it was so salty that it was not very nice. I now know that things are definitely not all salt is created equal. And in my little plate here, I have, in this little corner here, it's a bit hard to see, but it's actually pink. This is our Himalayan salt. It is recommended because it does have some trace minerals and elements to it that make it a lot healthier than normal table salt. Comes from the Himalayas, of course, and it's Himalayan salt rock. The only thing about Himalayan salt, and why I've kind of gone off it in the last couple of months, is it is a process that is doing quite a lot of damage to the Himalayas. That's the only reason. It's still very good for us, but there are other options that we can get that aren't destroying the environment quite a lot, as much as what's happening with Himalayan salt. So I don't use it quite as much. This one here is a really interesting salt. This one here, and by the way, let me taste, come up here, you gotta see, because there's no way you could do this with normal table salt, right? I'm gonna taste it. That's the Himalayan. So still a bit, I would say the overall flavor profile is still salty, right? But when we go to the other salts in here, and that's what I've got in this little corner here, you notice this kind of almost looks like coffee sugar. You know, it's kind of granulated. This is actually salt made from bamboo. I know. Did you know you could make salt from bamboo? It's really cool. It's called jade bamboo salt. And it comes from bamboo extracts. And it's really incredibly highly nutrient dense. So the flavor is way more mild than the Himalayan, like so incredibly mild. And it's almost got a sweetness to it. Like I could literally sit there and eat that salt, and it comes from bamboo, and we all know how incredibly good for the environment bamboo is, because it doesn't need much watering, and it grows like a, it grows amazingly quick, almost like a weed, and it doesn't require a lot of care either. So bamboo salt, keep an eye out for it. I reckon it's one that's going to start popping up, full of nutrients, full of antioxidants, would you believe? Bamboo, right? The one I have next to it, this one, which kind of looks like I suppose a mound of brown stuff, that is actually salt that has been smoked with wood that they use the barrels to, it's a bit long-winded, the barrels that are used to mature Chardonnay, the wine. So this is Chardonnay smoked salt. And how does it taste? Once again, wow, the smokiness from that is ridiculous. It's hard to even imagine. I know it doesn't taste like Chardonnay, but it definitely tastes like a wood or a smoked, there's a barrel that's been smoked here. It's complex, it's not as sweet as the bamboo. The bamboo is really, really delicious, it's really sweet, but it's quite complex. That's an exciting salt. And then the last one I've got here, which is the white one that you see here. This is known as the Queen of Salt. And I bet you never thought you'd tune in to hear a salt, an ode to salt, my love poem to salt. But the Queen of Salt here, it's called Fleur de Sel Guérande. And Fleur de Sel Guérande is, as I said, it's known as the Queen of Salt. It comes from Brittany, which is in the northwest, it's a northwest region in France. And in order for it to be called Fleur de Sel, which is basically flower of the sea, it has to come from this area, Guérande, in Brittany, in order for it to be called Fleur de Sel. So it is, chefs covet this. For chefs, this has the most amazing, delicate flavor. It's literally hand harvested from these pristine ponds, salt ponds, on the coast in Brittany, in Guérande. And quite an expensive salt, and I only had a very small, tiny little bit of it because it's quite expensive, but it is one of those salts that's called a finishing salt. So you use it to sprinkle over the top of things. I won't be using it today in my salt and pepper squid because I literally use it as a finishing salt as opposed to one that goes into my cooking. But not all salts are created equal, and remember that table salt tends to be, it doesn't sometimes come even from the ocean. Table salt is mined underground, whereas what we have here is 4 very distinct flavors, and I advise that you play around with your salts. Don't just go with the old table salt because it's boring. It just tastes salty and it's like, whereas this is complex, it's nuanced, it's exciting, and you can literally create different flavors with your food just by changing your salt. So have a look for all these types of salts. They're all out there in the market. It's just a matter of finding which one suits your palate. And I think for today, I'm going to be using the Chardonnay salt because it's very complex. I think it's going to go really well with our seafood, with our squid. The bamboo would go pretty well as well, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure which one. I think, you know what, I'm going to use the bamboo. I am. I've changed my mind. We're going to use the bamboo one. But if you've just got table salt, I want you to only add a teaspoon of table salt. Now I'm going to be putting my salt and my pepper into my little grinder. It's ready. Into my little grinder. I took too much. That's ready. But if you don't have a grinder, you can also put this into a little food processor. This is a spice grinder. Or you could also put it into a little mortar and pestle, because we want to break down the salt and make sure we get a really nice spread. And especially if your salt's big granules like rock salt. And my bamboo, I'm going to put a bit of bamboo and a bit of Chardonnay in there. Why not? So 2 teaspoons of salt goes in there. And yes, you will have enough salt to sprinkle onto other stuff. I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of freshly milled or ground black pepper. Let's put that straight into there. Lovely. And just to give it even more wonderfulness, we're going to be adding in some wakame. So I have my wakame here, and I'm going to be putting in a teaspoon of our dried seaweed. Now goes into there. Imagine how good this little seasoning is going to taste. It's going to be ridiculous. Right, clean your bench, Bridge. Make sure you work nice and tidy. All right. Okay, they're ready. We want it to be fine. We want it to be a lovely powder, which I think we have achieved. Give it a bit of a scrape down. Oh yeah, it's looking good. Just gonna put it into here. This is gonna be my little salt pot for a bit. And yes, it does come out quite dark because of the wakame, which is really nice, but we have so much flavor going on here now. How lucky are we, right? So much flavor going on thanks to just playing around with this most wonderful, wonderful seasoning agent, which is salt. So that is done. So is this. Right, so much fun. Okay, where's my tongs gone? I got so excited I lost my tongs. Oh, there they are. Oh, I need some clean ones. Here we go. All right. So that was 10 minutes. Hey. 10 minutes. If you have a basket, your air fryer has a basket, there's nothing stopping you from giving it a bit of a shake halfway through. Yeah, totally do that. I don't have a basket. I can't shake it. It's a bit sad, isn't it? But what I can do, I'm going to just put this straight into a bowl, and I'll show you why in a second. These are other little tips that we use in the pub to make sure that we season things really well. So scrape it on down, and you can see that, yeah, I've got a little bit of sticking, but I would have had a lot more sticking had I not given that just that tiny little spray. So now that I've got it in my bowl, what we're going to do to make sure we get a really good, even coverage of our salt and pepper sprinkle that we just made, because this is where it's at, right? There's so much flavor here. I'm going to that's why I put it into my bowl, because then I have the ability to do this. And this is exactly what we would do in the restaurant, in the pub. Is we'd make sure that we wouldn't just try and just sprinkle it on before it goes in the plate. We actually have a bowl dedicated to tossing the flavors, that salt and pepper mixture on top of our squid. So that is it there. Let's plate up. Plating up is going to be simple and exciting. Blue plate, of course, because the ocean. Whatever plate you like. Okay, so put a lovely little pile here, and by the way, this is best eaten as soon as your air fryer beeps. As soon as it's done, you want to get into it. Yeah, it's not one of those dishes that sits around really well. And for anyone who's ever had salt and pepper squid, you know, in the pub, and you've gone off to play darts or play around a pool and come back, you know your salt and pepper squid's not going to be as good. So you want to eat this straight away. So how do you serve this? The ideal way to serve this is I'm going to be serving it with, and trust me on this, this is fabulous. This is probably my favorite way to have coconut yogurt. Straight coconut yogurt. You dip your squid straight into this lovely dipping jar of coconut yogurt. It is absolutely, like seriously, it is fabulous. It is so nice. It's almost like coconut and seafood goes well together. Of course it does. So you want to have a little dipping bowl of coconut yogurt. You also want to grab yourself up a lemon, because we need to have our lemon wedges, and I like to do what's known as lemon cheeks. So rather than cutting into wedges, I actually like to cut the cheeks off like that. I just think it looks really fancy. And of course, if there's any seeds in there, get rid of them. You don't need seeds. We'll put the lemon on the side. Looking very professional, looking very lovely, as you can see, very lovely. You can also, if you want to, this is another little trick, and this is something that our daughter Coco taught me. She had this for lunch, and she said, "Mom, you need to just put a little squeeze of lemon just into the coconut yogurt." She said it was absolutely wonderful when she did that. So give that a little bit of a mix through. Just a little bit of lemon transforms your coconut yogurt so much. Okay, think of a little sprinkle, why not? A little sprinkle of our fabulous little salt and pepper spread as well is just going to make it pretty amazing. And of course, we could not forget to just finish it off, and this literally is for color. I've got some herbs here. In fact, they're not even, this isn't even herbs. I'm using, would you believe, rocket, because rocket has a nice peppery taste to it. So even rocket, just kind of sliced up, just like that, can become a wonderful little green garnish, but it's also just going to help to add that little bit of pepperiness, not too much, to our salt and pepper squid. So there you have it. What do you think? How good does it look? Look at that color. Look at the color that we've achieved from that quick little cook and this fabulous little machine. It is quite incredible. So one thing before I go, something that I think is really another little golden rule of air fry cooking, so to speak, is how, or what is the best way to clean it. Because right now I have, you know, of course, pop that into the sink, you know, hot water, soap, scrub it down. But the easiest way to clean your air fryer is obviously most air fryer inners come out, and you'll see that I've got a little bit of, you know, bit of stuff on the bottom there. Give that a clean in hot soapy water, and when it's all clean, bring everything back to your air fryer. So bring this part back. Bring this part back already clean. Don't even bother to dry it. Close the lid. Put it on for 2 minutes, and it will dry itself really, really easily and really, really well. So that is my top tip for cleaning. Clean it in the sink. Bring the wet, don't even bother, like literally, don't even let a tea towel go near it. Dripping wet, bring it back in here, turn this on for 2 minutes, and it will dry it perfectly, and you will never have to worry about it rusting or going, you know, things happening to it that you don't want to happen to it. So it's pretty fabulous. But there, like I said, there you have my salt and pepper squid with that wonderful salt and pepper sprinkle that we put on top. I hope you have enjoyed this class as much as I have. I'm loving Air Fryer Week. We still have another class to go. Tomorrow, of course, is Q&A Fridays. Make sure you join me for Q&A Fridays tomorrow. But on Saturday, we're going to have another class, another wonderful air fryer class, but this time it's something sweet. So don't miss out on that class. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want all more wonderful, easy, delicious, gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free, and air fryer recipes. Subscribe to my channel. Until then, guys, take care. Have a wonderful evening wherever you are. Stay safe and stay well, and we'll see you next time right here in Bridget's Healthy Kitchen.